let me back up. Like one of the things that I think about today in marketing and today in creating a business, or even if you've had a business for a while and getting it growing, is like what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. How many people use, that are making and having their businesses and becoming entrepreneurs and creating their own business, right? And so there's so many people out there that I also feel too that getting creative with marketing and getting creative in how you can make yourself stand out differently, even if it is something that is similar, if it's something that is already out there. Do you think that has a big part in it, as well as how many people are self-employed or creating their own businesses?
Yes, I do, because a lot of people have a lot of creativity that's been stifled and working the 9 to 5 jobs, and now they're really ready to open that door. They're ready to take the risks, and they're ready to allow their unique passions to come through, and that reflects directly on your marketing message, because we're not going to have the same message, even though we're going to have some people could have the exact same service, but it's how they market the service, and it's how they use their own personal uniqueness that makes the services completely different.
Okay. So how would somebody like revamp or like recharge? So I know, like what you're talking about, personal growth and where you're at, but how would you, so if you're taking a look at what's growing or where you're at in your personal life, but looking at your business, what would be a starting point, or what would be an area of how, like, being supportive and having to revamp or reintroduce, or like what Scotty is talking about as far as how do you get that growth to happen?
The first thing to do to get that growth to happen is to not do anything in your business for 2 straight days and not think about it and not work on it.
Okay.
And that sounds counterintuitive, but when you're constantly focused on one thing over and over again, you kind of get tunnel vision. It's like you're looking at a little tiny dot on the paper, and if you stare at that dot long enough, it's going to look like it's the whole entire paper. But when you stop staring at the dot and you take a step back, then you get more clarity.
So is it being able to take that step back to maybe see something that somebody is not seeing, or something that where people aren't, I mean, is it being like kind of taking that what's the word? Like taking that outer body kind of experience, looking down, and seeing, okay, things a little bit more objectively?
It helps you get recharged, and it helps you get more renewed. And when you have renewed energy, you have newer renewed ideas.
Got it. Okay. And so I have, and it seems like a lot of the questions that we're having coming in on businesses or personal businesses seem like it's almost the same theme. I have another one from Trey here, and she's saying, I have a business that I'm trying to build. Both deal with education, one for parents and another dealing with schools. It's been slow gaining clients. She asked for some intuitive guidance, but it seems like there's that same thread that people are experiencing, where it's like they get to a certain point and then it's like, okay, now what?
Usually when they get to that certain point and now they say, now what, that's actually the universe getting ready to redirect them if it gets really, really stagnant to the point on where there's absolutely no growth. And what it does is it forces you to draw upon your creativity and to start looking at different ways that you can proceed forward. And it doesn't mean that you'll change your business completely and totally. It just means that your business and your life is going to take a different direction.
So how do you not fight that? Like I know for myself, again, like being, experiencing with like those stagnant times, or those times where you sit there and it's like, okay, it just feels like that there's something like on the verge of happening, but it's stagnant, and you're like, man, I feel like I've tried everything, or I feel like I've tried all these different tools or all these different things. So it does feel very counterproductive or difficult to take that pause. And so is it when you find like yourself in that space, so is that what you're meaning then there's something new, or there's going to be a new opening or new opportunity? Is that what you're saying?
A lot of times that is really what happens, is there's going to be new opportunities and new things that are going to be presented, and you can't see them when you're staring at your business so closely. You can only see them when you step back.
So it's about just creating that distance within your company to be able to see things a little bit more objectively.
Right, that's the first step. There's more steps, but that is the first step, yes.
No, come on, that's got to be it. No. And you know what's funny is it's like, and that's the hardest thing to do, because I know that, especially too, when you've put, I know some business owners. I have a dear friend of mine that opened up a yoga studio here in New Mexico, and she was in accounting and had worked her whole life in accounting, and found her passion in yoga and wanted to create this sacred space, and and being able to say, okay, I'm going to get out of the traditional world, and I'm going to take everything that I've worked for and throw it into a business, and throw everything into this business and say, okay, here it is. It's either going to sink or we're going to swim. That is a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult thing to do is to take that pause and retreat. Do you have any tips or tools in how to take that step back?
What I did is I literally had to book myself at a little cabin, and all I did was bring pen and paper and some of my favorite reading materials. I turned my cell phone off. I did not bring my laptop or my computer or anything. And because it was at a very desolate place, I had no choice but to just do nothing but walk in the woods and write and read my little books and do self-care. Sometimes you don't have to be that extreme. You can just, go to a motel for the evening and, decide all you're going to do this evening is just watch TV or take a long bath, or, and just do something that doesn't involve your business for at least the night, but preferably several days.
So just basically distract yourself and trying to find that space where you can have that distance.
Correct.
And however you do it.
Correct.
So when you're doing that and you get that time away, then basically essentially what's going to happen is the goal of the first step is then to have that pause, to get that clarity, to then be able to see things a little bit more objectively into, okay, now what do I need to do next?
Yes, and that does lead into what I'm going to do next, but it also opens up your creativity, and ideas will just start coming to you. And sometimes they come really, really fast, like you mentioned, and that's when you write it all down and empty out your head. But it gives you this renewed sense of vigor, where before you were kind of tired and you were running you felt like you were running a marathon, but you were doing it in fast bursts instead of pacing yourself.
No, totally. Well, and I think too, it becomes really overwhelming when those ideas come in, and then that's where I think the ego or that self-doubt can come in as well, where you're thinking like, well, okay, am I reaching, am I pulling? And there a lot of thoughts can come in with those ideas too, and that can be a tricky place to try and find yourself, sifting through those different ideas.
That's true.
When you talk about, and I want to talk a little bit about your retreat here that you have coming up, but one of the things that I notice a lot on your website as well is talking about, creating wealth and
Yes.
creating wealth for yourself and within a business that you can have. What does that, I mean, I know what creating wealth is, right? Like, but what is your interpretation as far as, or what do you mean, like teaching somebody and helping them to create more wealth in their life?
For me to have a wealthy life, you have a wealth of health. You have a wealth of money. You have a wealth of good friends. You have a wealth of inspiration. So wealth is not just related to money to me. It's a whole mind, body, spirit word.
Hmm. I love it. It is to me too. It's the all-encompassing as far as being able to be fully in alignment. And, I know a lot of times thinking like, man, if I could just I was talking about it last week on my show when I was talking about fears. And, I ran a poll last week and asked people what their number one fears were in their life. And number one is what was tied with relationships and money. And it's funny because you hear a lot of times people talk about, well, if I only had, this money, or if I only had this amount of money, or if I only had this, then, this could happen or this could happen, and not realizing that, even if you do have that level of money or your bank accounts are full or, you've got billions of dollars, that feeling or that lack of wealth feeling will still be in your other areas of your life if those other areas aren't flourishing or if they're not full. Don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And so how does one find balance within that?
The most important way to find balance within that is to focus on what makes you happy and what you have now and being grateful for that right at this moment.
Right.
And staying in your power, which is staying focused in the moment.
Hmm. I love it. Love it. Okay, so let's talk about your retreat you have coming up, because I know this is going to be really, really exciting. And so looking at your retreat, tell us a little bit about, is this your first retreat that you're kicking off, or have you had other retreats? It's a women's entrepreneur retreat.
This is the largest retreat I've had that's for a full weekend. I've had many events and workshops, as you know, that were
Mm-hmm.
smaller and that lasted like over several hours. But this one, I'm really combining a lot of the information that I've learned throughout the last 20 some years on how to create a really wealthy life in all areas, not just your business. Because when you start your business, that's really the best personal development you're ever going to do in your life.
Mm-hmm. You talk about how one weekend transformed your entire life. What happened?
I attended a seminar for business entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
and that entire weekend put so many different seeds of success within me that it completely transformed the way I did business and the way that I was conducting my personal life.
Mm-hmm. And so is this a combination of that? What will you be doing at your retreat?
At the retreat, I'm going to be teaching women on how to deepen their intuition so that they can make business savvy decisions, and with the focus on creating financial wealth. I'm going to help them how to create packages of their services so that their clients will absolutely love the packages, and it'll meet the client's needs and what the clients want at price points that are going to honor the entrepreneur. And then I'm also going to teach these lovely, wealthy ladies on how to form long-term relationships with the clients so that they can have the raving testimonials, repeat businesses, and get referrals.
And when you do these